So here we are in the palatial offices of Ball Peen Repair. We are ordering parts for the Jeep project. There's the engine mounts that we're using. Advanced adapters, engine mounts. There is the, nope, that's not it. That's it right there. The V8 to T15 adapter kit that we're using. This is our little laundry list from Summit Racing. And this is our receipt from Advanced Adapters. So we are on our way there, and we'll be back when we get the parts and we'll go through them. So we got an update now. We're getting a little into it here. Got some new parts. The headers, the starter, bell housing, motor mounts. This is Advanced Adapters. These are Headman. This is just a Summit Racing reproduction, aluminum bell housing. And we have the headers on there so we could see. We started test fitting it. These are stout, that's 1/4 inch. That's never gonna fail. We're probably gonna need to cut these short, is what we figured out. We had it in and out a couple of times today. We got the, getting the bay cleaned up a little bit. You can see that we knocked a bunch of the junk off. We took the brake lines out so that we could get what we needed to get done, and it did clean up half bad. It looks a lot better now. We just took the scale and everything off, so we're gonna treat those. Looks like what we're gonna have to do though is take the crossmember out and lower the transmission down, because when we're in line with everything, the engine is really high, and we don't like how high it is. Plus it interferes with the steering shaft. I thought the headers might be a problem with the steering shaft, but they're not gonna be. They're not gonna be. And there's nothing over on that side that's gonna get in our way at all. Nothing, no issues, on that side. There's nothing over there. So really it's just the steering shaft that we have to worry about. That runs right there, and what that ends up looking like is it runs kind of right through there is where that goes. And this is where the motor mount comes out. And these shorty headers, these are cool. This is even above the frame rail, so that's not even going to be a problem. So that's where we got our new parts. Bell housing. We're still looking for, there's a clutch for it coming, a adapter plate that's gonna go on the back that adapts the Chevy bell housing to the Jeep transmission. This is the other setup. This is the full setup. This, where the engine is here, and this sticks out over, and then this hooks to the frame, actually like that. To the frame right there. You can bolt it, and then you have to weld it in. And these just bolt to the engine. We're probably going to cut these right here because we don't need all that, because we're on the inner slot. So we're probably gonna cut them right across there to give us some more room inside, because as I was saying before, we want to drop the engine down in the, and what's happening is that these ears are resting on the frame, and we don't want that. So we're gonna trim them so we can set the engine down a little bit further into the chassis. And then the only other new part that we have is up here. We have our clutch. There's our pressure plate. thing is heavy. I believe how heavy that is. Here's our throwout bearing. And then there's our installation tool and our disc. These are all just stock parts. And they're designed to fit the... There's a pilot bearing there, but I don't think we're going to be able to use that. The adapter kit comes with a pilot bearing, which is the one I think we're going to have to use. But that's all that. One interesting thing that we figured out today when we were working with it is that the Jeep bell housing is a lot deeper than the Chevy bell housing. If you can see, they're kind of lined up in the front here, and then see how much farther this one goes back. So that's kind of cool though, because that's where our adapter is going to go, and then our adapter is most of that difference. So that's going to be actually a good thing to kind of keep the engine block, you know, pretty much where it was to begin with. So that's one cool thing we figured out today. So we'll be working on it tomorrow too. We're going to remove that cross member, lower the transmission down, probably stick it on a jack, lower it down, and then try to line up, maybe get the pilot bearing, see if we can get the input shaft and everything sort of in line with the motor and get the motor where we want it, so maybe we can start tacking our mounts in and figure out where we want our mounts. We really want to probably end up waiting until I have the adapter kit, which I don't have yet. So whenever that comes in, we will get that going well. So there's the update. Till we get something else, till we get that adapter, it's kind of probably before I'll come back. Okay, back with another parts update for the Jeep. Right there you have the clutch throwout fork, which that's a brand new GM part we got through Advanced Adapters as part of the kit they recommend. Here is our new GM flywheel. This came from Summit Racing Equipment, and this is just a brand new 153 tooth flywheel. This fucker weighs like 38 pounds. I can't believe it's that heavy, but it's that heavy. And so that is part of our conversion, because whatever was on this motor had a automatic on it. There's no throwout bearing or no pilot bearing, and there's no it has a flex plate on it. And then this is right here, we got the main attraction. We got a throwout bearing. We got our installation kit. These are the bolts that hold the adapter to the transmission. This is the new pilot bushing. And then we got a new snout. And this goes over the input shaft. And then here's the main attraction. This is the adapter that goes between the Jeep T15 and the Chevy bell housing. And we got the output shaft support, or the input shaft support, excuse me, for the transmission. And this goes, I'm not sure if this goes in that recess right there or if it goes on the other side of it. I am not sure which one that is, but then this goes between the engine and the bell housing. Can we get to it? We can't really get to it. Let's see if we can. Jeep is so light, you can just lean on it and push it out of the way. So what happens here is this goes on the bell housing like that. See that? and those ears sticking out. That's what a GM transmission looks like. It has those big ears that stick out. So that goes on there, and then the transmission that is in the Jeep bolts to this. So this effectively changes it over, and then you're good to go. It's really pretty cool. So yeah, this was the key part. Now, once we have this, we can put it, and you see how that bolt pattern on this side, on the inside, matches that bolt pattern right there. That bolt, those 4 bolt holes right there match. Well, there's 6 of them, because this must be for more than one transmission, but hopefully that fits the way it's supposed to fit, and everything will be good. But there you go. That's what's going to change. We're going to hook that to this motor. And once we have that, then we can determine our front and rear positioning, and then we can go ahead and weld the motor mounts in. And then I have a solution for that cross member, because I bought a new transmission mount, and what we'll do with the transmission is take, you probably don't need to see me walking all over the garage, but I bought 2 of these just in case we ended up wrecking one of them as we do all this. Brand new transmission mount, bolts up to the transmission, this bolts to the cross member, and once we know where the front motor mounts are, we can then determine where the cross member would line up and at what height the transmission is at. And then there is a tubular cross member that I found on internet. Where did I find that? I don't remember where I found it, but anyway, I'm gonna order that, and then that can be cut to width here, cut to the width, and then it has 2 collars that bolt to the frame, and then it bolts to the transmission, and then bingo, you're done. And you can get a 2-inch drop, a 4-inch drop, or a 6-inch drop, depending on how much you need. So that's why I want to put it all together first, and then we'll see which one we need. And if we had to modify it, I could modify it, but if we don't have to modify it, we won't modify it. So yeah, so once so now we have got all the kind of the parts that we need in order to determine where our motor mounts go, and then that's going to key the rest of it. And then we can start really doing, the welding and fabbing and the rest of the stuff that we need to do. So, all right, you will see it when the engine is sitting in there next, or when we've welded some stuff in at least, or ground some stuff, or done something. So we'll do a short update on the Jeep. We got the transmission adapter. That's the shiny new part that you see there. And with that, we were able to bolt to the bell housing, and then that allowed us to get in there and make these holes for the motor mounts. We were able to establish the front and rear spacing. You can see the first 2 holes there, and those 4 I'm gonna weld shut. Those are the old motor mount, and that's where our new one is. So you see we did move forward a little bit. But we also cleaned all this off today so that we could get the motor mount to fit right, because that was a big lip there, and it wanted to make the motor mount cockeyed. So now the next step with all this is that we're going to grind this clean so that we can bolt those mounts to the frame, and then they need to be welded to the frame. And then I'm gonna go in and see where this is not together there. When they boxed this frame, which I didn't do that work, but they didn't seam the whole thing. They just welded in some spots. So I'm just gonna fill that in too. So we were able to figure out what we wanted to do with the mounts. And so now once we get the mounts welded in, the next is the cross member. I have a couple of ideas for the cross member. There's some stuff you can buy. We do have an issue with the cross member because it has to clear the front drive shaft. So typical cross member comes and goes down and then goes back up like that. Well, this thing has to go down on this side. That's fine, but over here it has to go way over and then up. So we have to figure out how that's gonna work. And then, I don't know, maybe the factory cross member for one of these things will do the trick, because the motor or the transmission mount is right in line with that U-joint. So I don't know, the thing that they had in there as the cross member, that piece of C channel right there, you see how they just spaced it down. It's got those spacers right there, and then, you know, this went straight across. There was all kinds of plenty of room in there. That's why they spaced it all down. You know, this bolted to the bottom of the frame, so we have room for it to, you know, do that thing, but we'll have to figure out how we're gonna make that work. You know, I don't know. And then that was the contraption they had on the transmission. I'm not sure what that's all about, but that's what was on the transmission to hold it to the crossmember. So that's the quick update on what we got accomplished today. So we're getting there. Okay, let's do another Jeep update. As you can see, I have the adapter all in there permanently. What you got to do is you got to take the output support off the original transmission. You chop off the front of it, put it back on to support the bearing, then you put the adapter plate over it, and then you put the steel output support on there, and that ends up being the same length as the original output support. So everything is where it should be, and it's all lined up for, you know, for Chevrolet. So that transmission pattern matches that transmission pattern right there. We went ahead and got our new bolts for the bell housing, so we're good there. We came in here and you'll see that we have the motor mount. That motor mount is welded on. So you see we have that motor mount welded on. That's the driver's side. That are welded in. That old saying, a grinder and paint makes me the welder I ain't, is definitely coming into play there. We also came up and did this top seam, got that done, and we were headed down that way when I ran out of welding wire. So we'll have to get that when I get some new welding wire. We came in here and we cleaned these up, and we came in here and we cleaned that up, and then we came over here. I've got that one bolted to the frame. It's not yet welded in, but it's just bolted there. We're gonna go along these seams and weld those up as well. We came along the bottom there and clean that up before we put the mount in. And then there's still a little bit more cleanup we need to do back there. You see that looks kind of janky where the come on, focus, right where the right ahead of that mount there. And so we're gonna try to clean some of that up too. And then once we got all that done, we'll be painting this, and then we'll be ready to throw the motor in. I still don't have a solution for the crossmember, but we'll get to that. So we'll bring it back on the Jeep. As you can see, we have that motor mount welded in, and we have that motor mount welded in. And what I also have done is, because it wasn't done originally, I welded this whole seam all the way together. It was tacked in a couple of spots, but I welded the whole thing together. I did some work on the bottom as well, where there were some places where it wasn't welded. We went ahead and did the same thing over here, all the way down here, all the way to about there. Cleaned up some of this stuff, cleaned up a bunch of that, welded some patches in through there, and got the other motor mount welded on as well. So that was, you know, the big part of getting the whole thing done. So we're ready now to go back in with the engine and mount it on there solid where they're sitting. And then I gotta work out the crossmember. We have to figure out what we're gonna do, with the crossmember. I'm thinking about trying to get a factory crossmember, but they seem to be hard to find for this thing. So we'll have to see what we can do with that. But in the meantime, we also have new parts. We have a fan for the radiator. We have some gauges. We got this stuff from Kiko Auction website. We have bolts for the flywheel. We have bolts in there for the pressure plate. We have a bunch of other gauges. We might use, we might not use. We have our distributor. This is a GM high energy. Hopefully it doesn't hit the firewall. I just thought of that. We have our alternator. We have our air cleaner. We have a bunch of stuff. We have a carburetor here somewhere. What did we do with that carburetor? We have a brand new cool looking carburetor. What did we do with it? I thought it was with the air cleaner. Anyway, we have an Edelbrock Performer with an electric choke. So that's gonna work out pretty good. Edelbrock Performer is a really good carburetor. I have it on that thing, and I had it on my Gremlin, separate one on my Gremlin, and they work really well. I like the way that they work, and that's what we're gonna do. We were thinking about fuel injection, but we're not gonna do that for now. We're gonna go with the carburetor, and then maybe we'll do fuel injection later. So yep, there you go. I think the next update that we will have on this will be when the engine is in there for the last time, and the crossmember is in there, and we are ready to start doing some other stuff. Some of the things that we have to do before we put the motor in for the last time is we got to get new brake line for this wheel and for this wheel. The brake line comes up there, and then the other one comes up and around the front, so we have to work on that. And those are copper brake lines, and I'm not sure I am down with that, so we might replace those as well, just because we do all this and this thing won't stop. I am not going to be responsible for that. So and then the final step on these frame rails here will be, we've got some Eastwood rust encapsulator and rust converter. We're going to go down the inside of the frame rails and coat everything. We've got this stuff with the little tube that you stick in the hole there, and you run it back and forth, and it coats the whole inside. And then we've got just regular paint on stuff, and we've got some spray on stuff. We're just gonna hit it all and get it all squared away. Oh, and then yesterday when we were working, Mike took out the radio. We're gonna put, he decided he's got a CB radio, and we're gonna stick that in there, which I think is gonna be really cool vibe for this Jeep. And then we'll get a big whip antenna or something. It'll look super 1974. We like that. So there you go.